It's 67 degrees.
Hi, I'm Barry Gilreath with Fabric of Family. Let's begin our program.
How do you explain? How do you describe?
In Him, all families are blessed. Join our discussion on Fabric of Family.
You know, one of the great challenges that we are facing in our homes today is the challenge of drug addiction. You know, drugs can be very useful, and of course, when those are prescribed by a physician in order to treat a particular ailment, then that can be something that is good and help us to be healthy and to get back on track. But you know, sometimes drugs can have an adverse effect upon us. And certainly when those drugs are taken for inappropriate reasons or are taken when they're not prescribed, then there can be all sorts of problems that can arise. Well, in our program today, we're going to be talking about a very sensitive subject, because we're going to be talking about drug addiction and how that drug addiction can have a major impact upon our family. Now let's go over and have a seat on the couch, and I'm going to be interviewing a young man today who has struggled with drug addiction, and also we're going to be talking with his father later in the program.
Thank you for viewing the Fabric of Family. If you would like to receive free Bible study materials, please contact us. Our mailing address is 1031 Hermitage Drive in Florence, Alabama, 35630.
Never conceal my Savior and guide. He is a light.
Or you may contact us at our website, jhcc.org. That's jhcc.org.
Flooding my soul with
or you can call us at 256-764-6291.
His praises, Jesus is mine. In the bright
That's 256-764-6291.
mansions above, singing His praises, gladly I'm walking.
Our hope and prayer is to bring you and your family closer to God.
It's time for our discussion on Fabric of Family, and we're talking about a very important subject today on the program, one that is having an effect upon more and more families throughout the world, and certainly in our country. And as a guest today, I have a young man by the name of Robbie Eversol Jr., and I've actually known Robbie since he was 2 years old. You know, we go way back together. But the reason you're on the program today, Robbie, is because, you know, through life, we have to make decisions about what we're going to do.
That's right.
And the decisions we make have an impact upon us, either for the good or the bad. And there were some decisions that you have made along the way that you recognize weren't good decisions. And as a result, there's been some consequences that you had to endure.
Absolutely.
And these have to do with the use of drugs. And so I just want to begin the program by just coming right out and asking you this question directly. Do you consider yourself a drug addict?
Well, after 15 years of heavy drug use, you know, they say once an addict, always an addict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
I am a recovering drug addict.
Okay.
And there's a difference in an addict that's in active addiction and an addict that is in recovery.
Okay. Well, please explain to us, those who are watching the program today, how drug addiction or drug misuse first entered into your life. Kind of give us an overview.
Okay, so I was raised in the church. Father's a faithful minister. I was raised in a program called Lads to Leaders. Just like you mentioned earlier, came a point in time where I had to make decisions for myself. And I started to just kind of on Friday night after a football game, go to a party, experiment, pushing out that boundary, trying to get some new friends, just, you know, kick my heels up, have a little fun, and experiment. And that's how I got started. It was very occasional at first, but as sin does, it grows and turns into other things.
Well, was this something that you first began to experiment with when you were in middle school or high school? Or?
Absolutely. It's really started, the first party I believe I went to where there was any alcohol involved was 7th grade.
Okay, so alcohol was also a part of the abuse as well. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow, and was that something that was common amongst most of the kids, or was it just common amongst some of the kids, or what was your experience?
My experience was most of the kids. You know, if there was a class of people, the cool kids, and that class of the cool kids, they had parties, and drugs and alcohol were involved. Yeah, always.
So there was the aspect of alcohol. What type of drugs were you introduced to?
Well, first it started with just marijuana. Used marijuana for years, and it was something that was done recreationally for fun on the weekends. But just like the devil, he'll let you run with the bait for quite a while, and then he'll set the hook. You know, and I always laughed at the thought of marijuana being a gateway drug, as it is caused. But I promise you, if I had never smoked marijuana, I would have definitely never graduated to meth.
Okay, so you went from marijuana to meth.
Absolutely.
All right, and what was it that led you from one to the other? One that many in our country today, I won't say many, but some in our country today consider to be nothing of concern. That is marijuana. I think most would consider meth to be of major concern. So what was it that caused you to go from marijuana, which you have described as a gateway drug, and I would agree, and graduate to the meth, which is even more destructive?
Well, absolutely, and marijuana, I would say, is the gateway drug because you start to desensitize over a period of time. The marijuana, you don't get the same feelings. It's just like any other drug. You become desensitized to it. And what used to be really bad and you're getting away with something, it's kind of nonchalant. And so it's easier to graduate. You hang around a different class of people.
I got you.
That you wouldn't normally associate with. And it just all happens over time. It builds.
And I think that's so important for parents who are watching this program today to understand that marijuana is something that is very, very serious because of what it leads to, the kind of people that it puts a young person around, the value system that they have, and how easy it is to go from marijuana to something like methamphetamine. So this was something that began, might even describe it innocently while you were in middle school, but it is something that eventually evolved into a hard drug like methamphetamine. And how dependent were you upon that drug?
Well, at first, like I said, it graduates. At first, it was just a little bit every couple weeks. I was able to function at a decent level, hold down a job. The last 5 years, I held a job down pretty good until the last, I would say, 17, 18 months. It was just like jumping off a cliff. Life just came tumbling in, crushing in around me. How dependent? There's so much that happens in the human brain when becoming dependent on those chemicals. And there's emotions and psychosis and the drive to do what you need to do is not there. The only drive that you have is to make sure that you can get high the next day.
And would that be why someone who is addicted to drugs are willing to forsake anything and everything? Wife, spouse, kids, job, whatever it may be?
Absolutely. Now, one of the reasons that it's important for us to talk about, now this has been a taboo subject for a long time, but we need to talk about this. And a lot of people that have never done drugs and they don't have any idea what it does to the mind, the pull that it has on the emotions and your happiness. Let's say a man and a woman in a marital union have sex. The serotonin and dopamine release in the brain on a chart would reach a level of 200. That would be the good feeling. With either heroin or methamphetamine, that serotonin and dopamine level in the brain hits 9 to 13,000. So the euphoric dump that those drugs put in the mind is stronger than anyone could imagine. And so that is why people will forsake, they'll lose their families, their jobs, their house. They'll give everything up.
And I think that would also help to explain why someone who is involved in those type of drugs would be more sexually promiscuous because of the fact that that would intensify the pleasure that drug is able to produce upon the brain. Absolutely.
And, you know, when someone is living in that life of addiction, especially females are preyed upon. Females are preyed upon by male dealers. It's got to be, it is a horrible life to live. And that's why we need to be talking about it. We need to start facing it. Drug overdose in and of itself it took 60,000 people's life here in America last year.
You know, sometimes I think people think that they're immune from the consequences of engaging in these activities. But what are some of the consequences that every single recreational user, as they're sometimes called, recreational user, what are some consequences that every single one of them are going to experience? You know, you've been there.
Well, for one, I was of the idea that I was strong enough to control my use, and I was going to be the exception to the rule, and that I wouldn't get caught, and these consequences I was going to evade. But if you just use recreationally, I can promise you that, for one, what you're doing is illegal. And you do something long enough and you will get caught.
Yeah.
There will be legal consequences. Whether if you accidentally have an accident and you've got a joint in your car and the police find it, you will face some consequences down the road somewhere. And just the fact that it's human nature, when you start messing with chemicals in your brain and you start recreationally using drugs, you're going to mess with your God-given brain's ability to rationalize, to deal with emotions. There's so many things that these chemicals that we put into our bodies, they alter, and they make us different people. They make us not functional.
Yeah. And you know, you mentioned earlier how that marijuana is a gateway drug. You know, I would add to that and say that alcohol is a gateway drug as well, because you get accustomed to consuming alcohol recreationally, and that makes it even easier to fall prey to other types of usage.
Absolutely. And if I could say that, since I've been in recovery, alcohol is one of the toughest. And the reason being is it's on every TV commercial. Alcohol is in every restaurant. Alcohol is in every gas station. Alcohol is something, once you fall victim or prey to the devil's lies and you buy into drinking and you have a problem with it, that's one of the hardest things to overcome because it is everywhere and it's so socially accepted.
Yeah. Well, Robbie, I tell you, I'm just very excited about having you on our program today because, well, first of all, I've known you since you were just a baby, but also because I know your family. I know your dad's a gospel preacher. I know the way you were raised, and it just goes to show that there is no family that is immune from these kinds of things creeping up in the family unit. And you're an example of that. But you have gone through the recovery process, and you have educated yourself, and you're going out and you're speaking to youth groups and speaking at various functions and gatherings throughout the Southeast, trying to help kids and their parents to understand what this can do to them. Now, we're talking about the family, and I think it's important we touch upon how that this can affect or will affect the family as well. We're not an island to ourselves.
Absolutely not. I can recall my mother coming to me when I was in active addiction with tears in her eyes and asking me if I would get help. That she would rather help me get treatment as to bury me with tears in her eyes. I completely, in my active addiction, cut myself off, ostracized myself from my dad and my sister because I knew I wasn't living right. Now, it's not that anybody browbeat me with the Bible when I came around, but it would just take something subtle like, I wish you would consider your soul. And I would have to go bury those emotions instead of doing what I ought to have done and face them and repent. For so long, I was absent from my family, which had to hurt them severely. And until the point to where, I almost did lose my life because of everything, because of the drugs and the lifestyle that I chose to live.
Yeah, I mean, you got involved in it pretty heavily, and as I understood, even were you not shot? Shot in a situation involving and drugs and so it is something that seemingly we say, oh, that's not really that big of a deal. It's just, some kids who decided to drink at a party or who partook of marijuana at a party. But as you look back over your life, you can see how all these things are connected.
Absolutely.
And how that eventually the devil just gets his claws into you so tightly that it seems like at least there's no possibility of escaping.
Oh, I was on the verge of, I had actually, the day before I got shot, I had written my mother basically in a long text, a suicide note. I had gotten into a lot of trouble, and I still am facing some things, and I was not going to go to prison. I was not in a mental place. I was going to, my truck was known by the police department, so I knew when I got pulled over I would be going to jail, and that for a long time, so I was just going to take my own life so I wouldn't have to go to prison. And that's the mentality that drugs will put, and I don't care who you are. And if there's someone watching the show today that has a family member struggling, please, there's help out there.
Well, where can they turn for that help?
Well, there's a place in Decatur, Alabama called Project Rescue.
And we've actually had them on our program in times past, talk about what they do, but go ahead.
Well, for one, I would recommend going to your local congregation, talk to your elders, and get some help. The church needs to be involved. This is a problem. And talk to your local elders, see if they're willing to help, because recovery is not cheap. It does cost money. One of the things that Project Rescue does require is assistance. They want the person to come into recovery to have a period of time where they're just working on themselves before they get a job. There's multiple program options. There's a 1 year in-house. They just started a program called 3.9, which is a 3-month intensive inpatient, 9-month outpatient.
Well, and so there are resources that are available out there, and that's the one that you've relied upon, and it's helped you.
Absolutely.
Well, Robbie, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to bring your dad onto the set, and I want to talk to him as well.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, this has an impact upon the family as a whole.
Yes, sir.
So stay with us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for viewing The Fabric of Family.
Flooding my soul with
If you would like to receive free Bible study materials, please contact us. Our mailing address is 1031 Hermitage Drive in Florence, Alabama, 35630.
me, never conceal my Savior and guide. He is a light.
Or you may contact us at our website, jhcc.org. That's jhcc.org.
Flooding my soul with
Or you can call us at 256-764-6291.
His praises. Jesus is mine. In the bright
That's 256-764-6291.
two mansions above, singing His praises. Gladly I'm walking.
Our hope and prayer is to bring you and your family closer to
Jesus
God.
is mine.
Well, we're back with our discussion with Robbie Eversol Jr. I've been talking about drug use and how it has an impact upon us as individuals and also our family. And as you can see, sitting beside Robbie Jr. is Robbie Sr. Robbie Sr. has been on Fabric of Family before as a guest. He's a gospel preacher, and he's the proud father of Robbie Jr. I know he's proud of Robbie because Robbie Jr. has made such strides in his life in recent times. Robbie, I want to ask you, Robbie Sr., what was your initial response, I mean, as a father and as a preacher, when you first realized that your child was involved in experimenting with drugs?
There's two aspects. First, when I heard it, I denied it. I even told the person who told me, I said, no way. Then when I realized it was true, the very next day, the principal called me and said, I have your son handcuffed in my office. You need to come here. And I was sitting with my brother and had a bad accident. So I had to drive down to Georgia. And my nightmare began. It just, I felt like a failure as a father. And
Now, about at what age was Robbie Jr. when it first came to your attention?
7th or 8th grade.
Okay.
8th grade, something like that.
So you felt like a failure as a father?
Oh, absolutely. Felt like a failure as a father. I felt, how could I not have seen this? Totally blindsided. And, you know, we let him go to his friend's house after a football game and things, but had no clue. Had no clue. Parents, vet your children's friends.
Yeah, that's
Snoop.
That's some good advice, is it not? Were you able to kind of separate this matter with Robbie Jr. at the time, you know, from work and home, or was it something that was just all encompassing?
At first, it was all encompassing. It was just, I was devastated. And I continued, of course, to preach and to do my job. But, you know, the welfare of my son was never far from me.
Well, do you think that this experimentation with what they call gateway drugs, such as marijuana or even alcohol, you know, parents, though they don't necessarily approve of that, will sometimes try and minimize that. What would you say to those parents, having seen the whole spectrum of drug abuse?
The finished product of the brewer's art is in the gutter. Parents need to wake up and realize that as far as addiction goes, there's a progression. And Robbie spoke about that a little bit ago. When you start out with one, then pretty soon one doesn't do it, so I got to take two. And now 2 doesn't give me the high that it used to, so I got to take 3. And there are thousands every year that are buried.
Wow.
Because of the progression that goes with it.
Well, what would you recommend to a mother or father if they were to suspect that their child was taking some drug, regardless of what it was, if it was marijuana, alcohol, or even something like meth?
Let's be proactive first.
Okay.
Before we get into that, let's lock our medicine cabinets up. Most drug use begins at home. Experimenting with dad and mom's prescription pain medicine, etc. Dad and mom should always know exactly how many pills are in the bottle. It should be kept under lock and key. For from about the age of 12 on up is when that experimentation really takes off. So trust, but verify. Snoop. Don't let them know you're snooping. I had some kids tell me one day when I was talking about this, they said, "That's my room." I said, "Oh, no, it's not. Your dad and your mom paying the house payment. That's their room, and they just let you live in it."
Do you ever, as a parent, and I know there are ups and downs, but do you ever, as a parent, did you ever have a point in which you felt like you were ready to give it up?
Oh, I did. We went years. We would go months. I would text him or call him. He wouldn't answer. And then maybe Christmas or Father's Day or something, I'd get a text or something. But we would go sometimes a year and never speak. And with the lifestyle, the people that I knew that he was running with, to protect my own heart, I pulled away. I sure did.
Well, we don't have much time left. I think we've got maybe a minute or so. So just real quickly, where are you right now, Robbie, in your situation? What are you looking at? You mentioned earlier how there's still some consequences. That
Absolutely. I've still got court dates from charges, from things. And one thing that I can't stress enough is no matter if you do change your life for the better, you've still got to face the tune to the music of the past. And just because I'm living for the Lord now does not mean that I don't have to face what I've done. He saved me from my sin, but you do the crime, sometimes you got to do the time, and there's no telling what my faith is in Him, and that's all I can. All I can do is trust Him and His plan. I know His plan is perfect.
Well, I want to thank you both for being with us today. This has been very eye-opening, and we certainly wish you well in your continued recovery. Well, I'm telling you, our time really gets away from us, especially when we're talking about a subject such as the one that we've discussed today. So much information there and so much more that we could have covered, but time just didn't permit. I want to invite you to be with us each and every week on Fabric of Family because, as you can see, we're always addressing subjects that are related to the family, but from a biblical perspective.
Let's make the most of a minute. Freedom is a word we Americans take very seriously. Did you know the Bible has something to say about freedom? Jesus said in John 8 and verse 32, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." The freedom Jesus came to offer is multifaceted. It means forgiveness from our sins, the guilt of which I may have carried for years. But it means other things too. For example, in Matthew 5 and verse 44, Jesus said, "Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." Just how does that relate to freedom? When I have an enemy, I'm imprisoned in a sense, in that that enemy often dominates my thoughts. Jesus teaches us freedom from the imprisonment of hatred. I'm Glenn Colley from the Church of Christ, hoping you make the most of your minutes.
Hello.
Speech on. Page 1 of 3, volume 81. Hearing, remote, screen, camera, calculate timer, flash, selected, brightness, mute, selected, screen recording.